The creature hissed, then attacked with a roar. Haddie evaded. Terrible claws swished overhead and hit the wall. Bits of rock and stone rained over her. Covered in debris, she sprang up and ran, with the creature in pursuit. She turned in the gathering dust and instinctively felt the attack before it came, as she often did. With one quick thrust of her arm, the blade of the kukri severed the hand. The creature shrieked something terrible. Haddie seized the opportunity to sever the head, but the creature lunged away and the blade hit the stone wall. The kukri vibrated out of her hand, and she dove to the ground as the creature charged her. Tumbling away, Haddie instinctively grabbed a slab of stone. The creature attacked and missed, hitting the wall. Without hesitation, Haddie smashed the slab over its bewildered head with a terrible crunching sound she wouldn't soon forget. The creature collapsed, and Haddie, adrenaline rushing, bludgeoned the head and eyes. When there was nothing left but a sticky, warm pulp, she released the gore-covered stone and fell back on her haunches to gather herself.
Hooray!
Hello everyone, my name is Endless and I love Haddie Kaur. Like, if you haven't noticed, I base most of my Survivor content with her involved in some form or fashion. That's not by happenstance. Me and many others consider Haddie, and by extension her chapter, Roots of Dread, is what really brought horror back into the game of DBD and on the radar for many people. However, you don't really see Haddie around too often. She is, after all, one of the least played survivors out there in the fog. So if you are watching this video, you either one, a Haddie enjoyer like myself, two, was directed to this video when asking why Haddie as a survivor main, or three, genuinely curious about what makes Haddie so neat and why is there a whole group of Haddie enjoyers across different socials. And so here I will cover some of that and her lore in the hopes of convincing you on why she's, well, why we call her Haddie the Baddie. So why Haddie out of all the survivors on offer to play as? Simple. She is a bad mama jama, the whole package. On the survivor side, at least, she is my ride or die choice simply to the unequivocal fact that she's just a badass. She's a badass. Going off her lore, she's a paranormal investigator, but with actual ghouls, goblins, different ghoul that go bump in the night, possessing the ability to see realms beyond our own. Right, she's connected to not to the entity itself, but she has an ability. She knows more about the encroaching darkness than most. It's pretty cool, perhaps that's why she's not afraid to stand face to face with danger with a flashlight in hand. When confronted with said danger, she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. Don't worry, we'll get to that. She's also distinctly human. Flaws and all. She feels grounded in reality and yet exceptional in what she's trying to accomplish in the world and in the lore of DBD. Her whole shtick, her whole vibe of what she does is it's supernatural, paranormal, and cryptids. It's so right up my alley. It's a good sign when your fictional characters embody more than what's just put to paper. It can almost feel like you could find them relatable with their traits, interests, or general vibe. Right? In my case, I love ghost stories, right? I love ghost stories, unexplained mysteries, hinting at supernatural forces and cryptids. I love a good cryptid. Who doesn't? Some of my, favorite TV shows growing up, right? And just throughout the years, kind of dating myself here a bit, but, being like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, Monster Quest, even Twilight Zone, right? I know they're not real, and they could certainly be explained away, but the fear of the unknown and the possibility of uncovering the truth is so captivating. Haddie's doing exactly that. She doesn't operate solo, per se, but she carries a lot of self-motivation and determination, and that's why she's just doing it. It's really cool. So I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So in the lore of DBD, up until Haddie's release back in Roots of Dread, we didn't have any characters at the time trying to get answers outside of a few, like the Observer, let alone answers of what the entity truly is, maybe even outside of the realm, not inside the realm, but outside it. With her arrival into the game, we really got a character who really got the vibe, right? She understood the assignment, right? Around the campfire for the other survivors. She's being much less of a helpless victim and maybe not entirely comfortable. She's someone who's prepared, so she's willing to face the trials ahead of her head on. The lore around Hattie is as such a pivotal character, grounded character, motivating character, is kind of what kept me interested in DBD, kind of pulled me back in. It's why I love the game despite its many flaws. Long and short of it, the magic or the secret sauce behind the characters is most certainly their grounded themes or backstories. I say magic because the sheer amount of variety of characters attracts real people from all walks of life. It could just be simply liking the vibe of a character, to reading every piece of lore there is to know about them is itself kind of astounding. Considering not many games in the live service space can pull that off, right? Which is a shame considering the lore nowadays, but for DBD, that's another topic for another day. It's something to sink your teeth into. Hattie really does that for me. I could relate to her in many ways. What she does is cool. She's unique. I've talked about it quite a bit. Well, I'll get into the lore, right? The receipts, if you will. Before I do go into this lore, I want to let you know a few things. The lore, reading it yourself and getting into it for Hattie, and any character for that matter, is well worth it, right? Behavior doesn't do a good job at showing you the lore, where it is. However, I really do encourage it. So while I'm going into it here, I will leave out some details, but I will give you the gist of everything you need to know. Anyway, let's get to it. Which finally leads me to Haddie Kaur. Hattie's story is different. She's not a victim. She's a hunter, a pursuer of knowledge, ever defiant. The first survivor to chase the darkness before it ever came for her. But who is she? Being of Punjabi descent and raised in Quebec, Canada, Hattie's early life was marked by tragedy. During the holiday season, her parents went to a party with their closest friends. When Hattie called her parents to say she felt sick, they left in a hurry. As such, a fatal car crash claimed her parents as they attempted to return home. As Hattie's fever broke, the police arrived at their doorstep telling her that they had not suffered, but Hattie was old enough to know that the police were just being kind. The next morning, she woke up with white hair and a question that would haunt her for the rest of her life. Adopted by those same family friends, she found love, safety, but something else found her too. The trauma of losing her parents seemed to unlock something within her. She seemingly developed a sixth sense for the supernatural. Though these weren't hallucinations, they were genuine rifts in reality. She began to see things nobody else could see. Horrible, unnatural, inexplicable, unexplainable things. Apparitions tormented her in class, at home, in bed. Her unexpected screams earned her the nickname Hattie, only adding to her alienation and anguish. Once a cheerful and social child, Hattie walled herself off to the world. This led her to become obsessed with the supernatural, determined to uncover what was haunting her. With time, Hattie realized with her uncanny abilities only triggered in certain areas. Dark areas, places in the world where another dimension somehow bled into our own. Her foster brother, Jordan, for the purposes we'll just call her brother, called these areas overlaps, and they seemed to give Hattie insight into a dark, shadowy world straight out of a cosmic horror story. When Hattie graduated from high school, she felt the unexplainable tug to discover who her parents were and turn her obsession into a mission to seek out answers and to help connect the big picture regarding these overlaps. So, along with her brother Jordan as her companion in the field, and her uncle Stefan as the production arm, they went all over the world, funded by a mysterious benefactor, to investigate haunted sites, urban legends, and unknowingly places touched by the entity. They would post their findings on their podcast, Harbinger of Hell, for the world to see. Using her abilities, she was able to provide a living for her family while also getting those answers she so desperately seeks. Unlike many other survivors, she knew what was coming. She had been dancing along the edge of the fog for years at this point. When she finally arrived into the fog, trying to investigate the happenings at an abandoned house, it wasn't a shock. it was an inevitable confrontation. She felt ready, willing to figure out what really happened to her parents. She was pulled into the fog when on a trip in the Alps, Hattie heard someone faintly cry out the help in Punjabi. It was the entity manipulating what she saw. She narrowed her gaze and saw tiny plumes of vapor floating from her parents' lips. Profound sense of urgency, she rushed through the wreck, trying her best to take her parents out of the wreck. But ultimately, with a terrible cry, she fell back into the snow after hearing, "Yes, Betty, you suffered." She finally got the answer she so desperately needed, but it's all just the entity to pull her into the realm. Lastly, some of her tome entries, right, to show you how capable and resourceful she is. Like I said, I'm kind of doing you a bit of a disservice here, robbing you of the small little trinkets of personality that shine through for her and her brother Jordan, but it will get the point across. Tome 6, right, the very first tome they added for her. She travels to India to investigate a cave in a place known as the Valley of Evil Eyes. Upon entering the cave, she, along with her brother Jordan, get held up at gunpoint by Black Veil cult members. Cult members that worship the entity in all of its old glory, right? So not long after searching the cave for an artifact, she fights a grotesque monster with dozens of red eyes and a mouthful of needle-like teeth, winning the fight by bashing its skull with a rock. Shortly upon leaving the cave, she simply addresses the camera for her podcast and reports on her findings in the cave.
Hattie charged toward the mouth of the cave with millions of eyes and chattering teeth on her heels. She felt the swipes at her back, but never wavered. She vaulted wildly out of the mouth just as one creature lunged at her. Hattie tumbled out of the cave as the creature hit an invisible barrier where the overlap of dimensions ended. She turned to see the dark mouth of the cave fill with scathing red eyes. Jordan stepped up behind her. "Helly Hattie does it again," he said with a laugh. Hattie gave her brother a dirty look. "Don't call me that," she said curtly. Even though he had meant no harm, it was a name along with the harbinger of hell children used to call her because bad luck, strange things, and unexplainable accidents seemed to follow her. Years of therapy gave her the courage to accept her abilities and to boldly call her series the Harbinger of Hell. Exhausted, Hattie sat on a sun-baked stone. Then she pulled out her cell phone and handed it to Jordan. He centered her in the frame and indicated he was filming. Hattie cleared her throat, mopped her forehead of sweat and soot, looked into the lens, and proceeded to address her online followers. "My name is Hattie, and I was born with a wonderful curse. All my life I've attracted strange and unusual things, and when I was 12, I realized I was able to acquire insight to unexplainable events and otherworldly places." She took a moment to calm her racing heart. She swallowed her fear, remembered she had a series to sell, and forced energy and pep into her voice. "What do you need to know about India? It's where my father grew up, and it's where I am today to explore the urban legends of this amazing country." Hattie took a moment to find her words. "Our adventure begins in northern India, at a strange place locals call the Eyes, or the Valley of Evil Eyes, where hundreds have disappeared or died, including a unit of British soldiers in the 1800s. What happened to these soldiers? Where did they disappear to? And is there any merit to the accounts of a cave-dwelling demon with eyes around its head that burn right through the soul?" Hattie stared meditatively into the camera and wanted to say yes to every one of her questions, but decided it was better to leave them up to interpretation. After a dramatic pause, she finished. "Take a look at what we discovered. Judge the evidence for yourself, and see if there is any truth to the evil eyes of the Himalayas."
Tome 7. She journeys to Turkey and finds a casket marked with the half crescent and 3 dots. There, the casket is opened by a woman working for that same cult. Once opened, a black mist is released, which possesses the woman and turns them into a vampire. After shooting the vampire, she manages to kill the vampire by drawing that same crescent and 3 dots onto its face.
Relieved, she scrambled to her feet, trying to think of a way to destroy this ancient evil once and for all. Then she saw it. The revolver, hanging from the belt. Without hesitation, she rushed up to the creature as two new white fangs pushed out the bloody remnants of the old. Before it realized what was happening, she snatched the revolver and shot the creature point blank in the face. The creature fell head over heels as Haddie unloaded the revolver into its face and body. But bullets were futile against this otherworldly apparition. Within moments, the creature was clambering to its feet, the whole while staring at Haddie with blood-red eyes. Nervously, she inched backward, not knowing where to go or what to do. There was nowhere to go, nothing she could do. This was the end. With incredible speed and strength, the creature pounced and took Haddie to the ground. Gleaming white fangs approached her neck with malice. She jerked and kicked and screamed under its weight. She felt its warm breath inches away from the nape of her neck. Then, in her mind's eye, she saw them again. The symbols she had seen etched in the casket. With dawning realization, she understood. The symbol wasn't a warning, but a seal. A seal to imprison this unfathomable, indescribable creature. As the creature prepared to gorge on her life, she managed to grab something sharp off the ground. Its broken fang. And with the last of her strength, she managed to etch the crescent and the 3 dots deep into its cheek. Suddenly, the creature's eyes widened into great big pools of disbelief. It looked at Haddie in abject terror as it stumbled backward, desperately trying to scratch the symbol off its ghastly face. But it was too late. Black mist, like acid, bubbled and burned through the creature's skin. The percolating mist filled its lungs, chest, and neck. The belly and chest ballooned as pressure bludgeoned the creature from within. Then, with an agonized shriek, it exploded like a cherry bomb. Covered in gore, Haddie dragged herself beside her rousing brother.
Pretty cool. Tome 8. Long and short of it, she wants to know who is funding her expeditions, and learns of a government conspiracy to use those overlaps between realities for their own ends, among other things. A bit of a detraction, there are 2 different Haddies. There is Survivor Haddie and Tome Haddie. In Tomes 10 and 12, we see a different Haddie from a completely different reality, but 40 years older. Badass granny. That's pretty cool. Pretty neat. Haddie, in this realm, in this reality, started investigating locations that were directly connected to the entity, past victims and killers alike, and in places where survivors had once lived or died. She finds more about the Black Veil, and their ultimate goals are to sacrifice the world to their old god. You know, and it has a nice healthy dose of government conspiracy and undercover work, while also connecting the stories of the artist, Carmina, and Jonah Vasquez. All in all, she's just cool, man. She's my ride or die and someone I relate with on a personal level. You know, her release chapter as a whole just oozes character and soul. Her scars, if you guys never noticed, on her arms and her face, she has a scar. She has scars. They're scars from her adventures when she fought all of these ghouls, goblins, vampires, and creatures from the realm that bled into the world. These are scars from her adventures, and that's pretty cool. She actually has battle scar. It doesn't get more cool than that. Along with the physical, the dredge, for example, her chapter companion, represents nightmares and suppressed trauma. You know, it's directly related and relevant to Hattie's life of grief, loss, and ultimately confronting horrors of the past, like she did in the Alps when she was taken into the fog. So it's pretty peak. She's just visually striking. She's just unique. The lore around it is really well put together. It doesn't feel overbearing or too Mary Sue. Feels tangibly human. I find it really neat, and I hope that I convince you that it is too. Yeah, it's pretty darn neat. She really embodies and champions that idea that your flaws, both mental and physical, are not your own doing. And through understanding yourself, you can grow as a person and achieve things that an average person would find exceptional. In reality, she's much like you and I, a person. Along with that, I would be remiss to mention that with her appearance, that she's wholly unique in her body type and appearance in game. It feels weird to mention, but you know, a lot of people make remarks on it, and being the character that she is and breaking conventional standards, and in this case beauty standards, to this day, people just don't like how she looks. It just feels right for Hattie, defying norms. She is, by extension, doesn't represent all of those similar to her, but it's clear in her design she's uniquely norm and average for her appearance. Though, I should mention, she pushed forward to make a life for herself and her family through sheer will, determination, well, oppressive trepidation, all while having supernatural abilities, but nevertheless, she's still tangibly human. Okay, bye. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.